Thank you, everyone, for being here. And this was such a fun screening, and it was John's second time seeing it. He saw it at the premiere where everyone's nervous, so it's not as fun. And he thoroughly enjoyed this. So this was a great crowd. So thanks, guys. And since John won't talk about himself, I was on the plane ride back to New York. I watched Philadelphia, and I forgot that he's in the movie as Tom Hanks' brother. And when Denzel wins the court case, he looks right at him. So it's, he's in Super Troopers, Bourne movie, Trading Places, Ozark, if you watch Netflix. I remember our casting process for this was really intense because we met with the casting directors, and we said, well, who do you think would be best? And they're like, I think John Bedford Lloyd. Who do you think? I was like, probably John Bedford Lloyd. Do you think he'd do it? They said, probably not. But then sent him the script, and you said you read it with a few friends?
I don't remember, but I just said to Daniel, it's not very often, unfortunately, that you get to be in a really, really wonderful movie that you say to people that you have to go see this movie. And when I heard when it's coming again here, I mean, that was like opening the floodgates. So I'm very, very lucky to be in this absolutely delightful, hysterical movie. So thank you.
Oh, nice. And now for the hard-hitting questions. Who's your favorite cast member? Okay. Feel free to ask anything except for that, because we are being recorded. And also, I think he deserves a lot of credit because, we wrote this, and I've been wanting to make a comedy for my whole life, but everyone said make horror movies, they do better. So I made horror movies before this. But now, me and my friends got to the point where we said, let's write the funniest thing possible. And we wrote this, but then a lot of people said, oh, you can't. It's too sensitive. You can't go there. Actors won't want to do it. And we believed them, but we sent it anyways. And thankfully, especially not even being Jewish and coming into this world takes courage, especially today. And to make it as funny as you did is unbelievable. You and Method Man brought the house.
Cliff Smith, who is Method Man,
who plays the doorman.
He is, and to be on a set with him, when he comes in that room, I have to tell you guys, there are 100 pages of improvisational lines that Daniel didn't get to put in the movie. And every time that Cliff came in, there was another thing that was hysterically funny. And Daniel, to shoot around a table like that, you may not know unless you've ever done this, it is one of the most terrifyingly difficult, straining, anxiety-producing things to do around a table, a bunch of actors, and moving the camera all the time. Daniel kept that set light and funny and fun and let us loose, and in fact encouraged us to let it go. And that's what you see in that incredible dinner scene.
Yeah, there are a lot of versions of Method Man talking about where his foreskin is. We have about 8 versions, and Milana she was sitting next to him, and you might recognize her from AT&T commercials. And she's also a Jewish and an improv goddess, so she was even feeding him lines. So together they were coming up with the craziest things you could imagine. One thing that we did not have a lot of takes of was the soup moment in the film. Could you walk us through live what it was like for you before the take? What did you expect? And once he flung the soup, what was your experience like?
Well, Theo, who is a young Columbia student, the gentleman, the youngster who threw the soup at me, he got a little carried away the first time we did it. And it was started here and it went to here, but it went about 45 miles an hour. So it went deep, deep into my orbital sockets. And so I think there was like a 45-minute unscheduled break in filming. It hurt like hell. And so we found all the Visine and all the, we could get. There was a moment when I was a little worried, but it worked out. The funniest thing was a beautiful apartment, a woman who was crazy enough, oh God, I hope she's not here. She was crazy enough to let us use it. And this soup was coming, it wasn't a lot of soup, but enough, and it was coming fast. So it came this way, and then probably the most expensive wallpaper I may have ever seen in my life. I mean, it was beautiful. It was beautiful, and it was right here. So this soup, the furniture, none of which was set dressed. It was hers, and it was at Heart Like Hell. Theo felt really bad, but thankfully that was the one you used.
Yeah, I feel like we had a responsibility to use that one.
Yes, of course. Yes, absolutely.
And as a soldier of cinema, he still finished the scene, which was shocking. So you see some of the lines in there are still from the take when he was pretty much blind. And he texted me a few months later, I still have my optometrist bill for you. Like, what's your address? I was like, oh no, it's like, I'm kidding. Does anyone have any specific questions? We'll answer just about anything. Maybe we'll start here and then go there. Yeah.
Sorry to hear about the Packers.
And we'll repeat the question so everyone can hear it.
It says, sorry to hear about the Packers, but my question to you, my question really is, could you tell us about directing a comedy?
Sure. Also, I have this sign-up sheet if you want to give me your email, and I just send out updates on pop-up screenings. So like I email people about this one. I don't know if you came from it, but you could just pass it along or pass it to a friend. Directing comedy, so a lot of people talk about like they think directing is complicated, like Elliot Kazan, who's like a psychological genius. They think, oh, you have to talk to actors, give them a specific note, and that's how you get the best performance. But with the comedy, for it to work, you need just a certain static in the room at all times, which you get from just trying to make the actors as comfortable as possible and allowing people to change lines if they want to, because then everyone has to be on their toes and listen to what's being said. And just having that environment just allows them to do their best work. Because back on a student film, it might be like talking to actors about their motivation. But here, I mean, there's no notes to really give. You can come up with different ideas of things to try, but it's just creating the environment and finding the best possible people for the role, which we luckily got. I was shocked.
Also, you're too humble to, it's the words. It starts with the words and the story and the characters. And some of the words, yes, that we spoke were not originally on the page, but most of them, thankfully, were, because when you just read this thing the first time around, it was hysterical. So that's why everybody jumped in. So if the words aren't there, and if you don't care about the characters, it ain't funny, but it's the words. So there you go.
That's a good point. William Myler says 90% of your film is your script and your cast. And that's especially true for this when it's all in an apartment, but is this entertaining? So we really lucked out, yeah.
I just wanted to say I love the movie.
So nice.
And I was also taken by the fact that I kept looking at every scene. And every scene had an action by the actors. There was nothing that was missing. So I really appreciated that.
That's nice.
And then the third thing was, it was very reminiscent of my Passover dinners with my family. It was like, I know that came out of my mother's mouth. And the fourth thing that I'd like to ask is, who were your influences?
Influences for this film.
Directing.
For this film in particular, the main influences were the Howard Hawks films of the 40s, where it's these very fast-talking screwball comedies that still make me laugh out loud. And if you'll notice, the cast in this movie talks at a pace that's faster than normal, where our script is 116 pages, which means it should be a 2-hour movie, but it finishes in 84 minutes because it was moving so fast. And then the structure of the movie came similar to The Birdcage, if anyone's seen that, where that's also a famous in-law movie where there's a climactic scene at a dinner table where they get into this big argument. And then the classic comedy influences like Mel Brooks, Ernst Lubitsch, Woody Allen, and just trying to make something that, makes me laugh, that I feel like they're not making comedies like they used to. And the two recent ones would be like My Big Fat Greek Wedding and Meet the Parents, those comedies that are just have a lot of heart and soul and are authentically funny without getting too ridiculous. And, we just tried to get close to that. And everyone said no. A lot of people passed on the movie. But eventually we got it made, and, we're all here. Yeah.
Tell us about, thank you. Tell us about how you got the movie made. Whom did you go to, and what was the metamorphosis of that?
How we got the movie made, and how long it took. We wrote the script for about a year to get it right. It was finished in like 3 months, but we kept iterating it. And then we had a bunch of meetings with producers trying to raise money. A lot of them said no, but after like 30 meetings, eventually they said yes. And we made it for a relatively low budget. The producer said I'm not allowed to say it, but I'll tell you after what the budget was. Yeah, just not in front on the camera. Anyone else?
Hi, in the back over here. Coming from a Jewish family, I think you really depicted the wife-to-be and the mother-in-law relationship almost to a T. Do you have any personal experience that helped really hone in that relationship dynamic?
I don't, because I know what I would have to deal with. But my brother did. He had a serious relationship with someone who wasn't Jewish, and I saw the tensions and wrote it down. But he actually had a really good argument. He said, Mom, if you date someone who's a different religion than you, you get all the holidays, which I thought was a pretty good argument, but didn't sell her. But she's really loving when you meet her. I don't think she would act quite like the mother in this film. I'm curious just in general because normally when you go to a set, there's a lot of space and there are trailers where actors get to hang out. This movie was filmed in a real 16th floor apartment, and all of the actors were in that apartment at the same time. What was that like? Because I was nervous. I said, this is going to be a disaster, but like you were a gentleman about it. Like Kira was so kind about it. So what was it like just being with all of the actors in such a small space?
Well, you know what the budget is, more or less, when you sign up. But when something's really good, excuse me, I've done a lot of independent films with small budgets, and some of them you do them because I want to work, or that's a kind of a cool character, and maybe that'll be fun, and sometimes you see these things, and they don't work out so well. But when you read something that's this good and this funny and it's got this much heart in it, you know, because you've done them before, you know your dressing room is going to be the corner of the room, and it's going to be a chair. And then there's the other dressing room he's going to be right next to you, and that's going to be Cliff, and he's going to be in a chair. But you know it going in. And so you're prepared, and you don't really care, and everybody knows it going in. So, and you can get a great big. I don't think I've ever gotten a big trailer. A third of a trailer I think I've gotten is what and you're doing just you don't want to go back to the set because it's a different feeling. But this was. And you should know, everybody hanging around, there was never a moment where like, God, I wish I had my trailer. Never, ever, ever, not for a second, because everybody was having such a blast. And the people who said yes are the people who knew that those were going to be the circumstances. So it was never, just so you know. And so, it's not an issue. It's never an issue.
That's a good point. And low expectations. That's
not what I'm talking about.
No, and a good script. And the energy on set was very much like it was like a camp almost, because usually on a film shoot, an actor's acting one day and another day they're just moving props with their hands and you're getting close-ups. Anyone who was on set was acting, and everyone was doing what we generally love, and it had just a great energy to it. And I remember for the dinner scene, we even rehearsed it in a church basement just to try to get all the movements right the night before. And I was like, I don't think the actors will stay extra to do this, but they were all just willing to come. And it was so nice just having them all gathered there. Method Man, I think, had to go to Vegas for the night, but everyone else was there. He has a cool life. If you look up the Wu-Tang Clan, or just look Method Man in YouTube, you'll be treated to a very cool rap video. Different from the film, but just as good. Yeah.
Before my question about the film, I wanted to ask, isn't David Paymer from Stamford originally? I don't know if that was...
Wait, really?
that
David
came out-
Paymer, who plays the father, is from Stamford? I thought he was a Long Island boy. Stamford? I was outvoted.
Yeah, I thought so. My question about the film is, since 90% of it takes place in the apartment, to what degree was the film shot in sequence, or was it really broken up from room to room?
It's a good question. I think we wanted to shoot it in sequence because that way, as you shoot things, you discover new things and you can put callbacks in later. So there's an advantage to it. And for an actor, it's probably better because emotionally you can go on one through line. But for the sake of expediency, once you have all the equipment in a room, you just want to shoot everything in that room. So we kind of went room by room. So we did all the kitchen stuff, then all the living room stuff, all the hallway stuff, all the downstairs, and then the dining room was towards the end of the movie, which was very intimidating.
So how long did it take you to shoot the entire film?
How long? It took 18 days. It's a significant number in Judaism for those counting. Thigh. And yeah, it was pretty short.
Hi. Quick question for John specifically. I'm right here. I've seen you in different places. I've seen you on Madam Secretary. You played Everard Burke, the Secretary of Defense. I've seen you on Law and Order. I've seen you on NCIS New Orleans. How do you prepare for shows like that are like big drama shows versus preparing for a comedy, like as an actor? Like, is there a difference in preparation? Is there anything you do differently while you're in the middle of acting?
Well, good question. Those episodic shows that you mentioned are a different animal entirely. They're on a different planet to what this is. I would say the first preparation you do is to make sure you know your lines backwards and forwards and upside down, because you'll be lucky if you get one take, because they're much more interested in Mariska Hargitay getting 7 takes than you getting, one, maybe 1.5. So you just it's a question of protecting yourself so you're ready to do the best job you can. And then you think about, I usually play very bad people, so in those things, but not too bad in this one. And then you think about who your character is, and unfortunately, those conversations don't come up yet on those shows, because you have to be absolutely sort of director-proof. Those are that's a particular genre for actors to have to deal with. This is a treat. I mean, the job here is to not think too much, because you just got to literally play with everybody, and that's what everybody did. This is relaxing, fun, silly, delightful. The other is fine too, and if I get a call to do one of those again, I do it in a heartbeat. It's just a different feeling in the doing of it, that's all. It's more of a machine, those shows, to be dropped into as a guest star type person.
Hi. So we, the audience, sees the brisket and the dinner go on the floor, but the guests don't. Was there a discussion on the scene of whether they should see it or not see it?
That's a good question. We discussed pretty much every detail in here. That's a good one. They spill the food on the floor, but then the parents don't end up seeing it. And we spoke to Kira about it, and she said that, I think she's right, that her character would take the precaution to spill it just in case, but also she would try to keep them out of the room. And I thought logically it made sense. And she also had a good read that she felt like her spilling all the food was this emotional moment of her giving up her idea for the perfect night and a perfect family that she envisioned, and it's her accepting a new reality. So I also like that emotional component she came up with, so we ran with it. And you should know that the brisket that we drop is not actually a brisket, because there are two brisket shots. There's the shot in the oven in the beginning of the movie, and then the shot of the brisket falling. So we're shooting on the Upper West Side. If we have to buy a brisket, where would you go? Zabar's, yes. So we sent a PA to Zabar's, and they came back with brisket, string beans, potatoes, and we're shooting the scene. Then the line producers in charge of the budget come storming in, and he's like, "Who just spent $390 at a grocery store?" And I said, "Oh, sorry, we have to get the brisket." And then he's like, "This is the last time we're using this. Actually, we need it again in 2 weeks." He's like, "We are absolutely not going to Zabar's. You're going to get a roast beef from," I forget which place, but it's a roast beef in the second shot if you pause it, because we couldn't afford brisket twice. Maybe on the next movie.
I found the characters perfectly cast. Did you have preconceived ideas as to who you were going to select, or what was that process like?
The process of, we didn't have anyone in mind, because I've never worked with famous people before, so I didn't think they would do this. So we just wrote what we thought was the best thing, and then we met with the casting directors and made a list. Okay, this is who we'll go to first, and then you go second, third, and thankfully everyone just said yes. So we just, went with the best people who we thought are amazing actors, because I think with a comedy, it's funny. The realer it feels, the funnier it is. So you want actors that are 10 out of 10 just acting wise. Then you also want actors that have that static where when they're present, like anything can come out and you just don't totally know what they're going to say, and it just like makes you lean in a little more, and that's like this extra thing you have to get in a comedy, and thankfully they all had it.
I had just one thing I was going to say. So many comedy films, they're quite hard to understand. A lot of fast-paced dialogue. Your dialogue was so beautifully cut. Pacing was amazing. And, you talk about how your writing was condensed, but those voices all overlapping each other, they were just so clear and so beautifully paced. So your editor did a really great job.
So nice. Kate Plum is our editor, if anyone needs. She does narrative features and documentaries. And what was the rehearsal process like? Because one thing we didn't have on this movie, which you normally have, is you meet up a week before and all the actors meet together and you just rehearse the lines to get on the same page. And I sent out an email like, "Hey guys, we're going to meet a week before, right?" No one responded. Everyone's very busy. So I was like, "Oh no, is this going to work?" But it's somehow everyone found this process where they kind of met together, or like on the day as they're setting up lights, people would just start reading lines with one another. Like I know you, like my friend came and I turned the corner and you were reading lines with him and practicing with John and Theo, and they all just found their moments to run the lines and try to find that pace. So it's a combination of an amazing cast and Kate, who in the finished movie there are about 600 frames that we just took out, because if you take out one of every 3 frames, you can speed up a shot and people won't notice. So if we needed it to be a little faster, we would just take out frames, and if we needed something to be longer, we would double frames. So there's a lot of surgery in there to also help get it right, which is psychotic, but we don't have, we're not working on many things at once.
The actors, there's a silly expression, everybody was in the same movie. And what Daniel's talking about, if you had 10 minutes and your hair and makeup was, everything was done, you said, "Okay, I got to run lines for this scene." Everybody was always on it, and everybody was doing that all the time, because everybody knew that we had 18 days and it had to get done, and you had to make every single day count. And so there wasn't anybody who was going, no, don't bother me. I want to get into character over here in the corner, and I don't want to, no. That didn't happen. Everybody was like, "Okay, let's go. So that was a big deal.
Maybe we'll take like 2.
I have one.
3
I have
more.
just a quick question. Given the win on Sunday, that was a relative budget movie and an independent. Were you inspired by that? I mean, that was a big win for
Inspired,
independent.
by the Oscars.
Yeah, it was a,
Oh yeah, Nora winning
independence.
is pretty amazing. Where they said every major category is won by an independent film, so it's really inspiring to see that it's possible. This isn't quite an Oscar movie, maybe Golden Globe comedy territory.
No, but it's an independent, and it's,
That's true. Yeah, it's definitely
So good for
very
you.
cool to see. And they shot Nora in New York.
yeah,
So-
right. That's right. That's
Yeah.
was filmed on.
And our COVID doctor on set is actually the driver in the last scene in Nora, who drops her off, which made me realize he's not a real COVID doctor. He was just the line producer's friend, and he's like, you know how to take a test, right? He's like, yeah. Oh no, this is recorded. We followed protocol. He knew the protocol, and everyone was asking him all these questions, like, so how does it spread? And he was just like sitting on the couch, just giving his opinion, like, yeah, actually, like, it's usually 3 to 5 days. I find sometimes 6. I was like, wow, 6, yeah. And I thought this guy was like a medical genius, and it turns out he just hangs around film sets and put on an apron. But he was a lot of people's favorite person on set. Yeah.
Daniel?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Bob, a friend of the family who surprised me here.
Yes. And also, I remember walking in the neighborhood with you, and you were telling me you didn't want to use the name Good Shabbos, a Bad Shabbos for the film for a while. You thought it might be
Yeah.
too ethnic.
Should we change it? Yeah.
But that wasn't my real question. You can answer that one too, though. But the other question is, assuming that many of the actors are not Jewish, and you didn't have a lot of rehearsal, how'd they do the Jewish idioms so beautifully that they did?
They just asked what the pronunciation was. Like Kira said, is it Torah? Torah? I was like, well, modern Orthodox is Torah. She's like, really? It's online Torah. I was like, yeah, but this is like a little more. She's like, okay.
So you coached them.
Yeah, thankfully I was able to be the Jewish consultant because it would probably be cheaper to hire one instead of paying for 12 years of yeshiva. But my parents are now very grateful that they did it because we got everything right. And most of the items you see in the movie are actually from my parents' house because we wanted it to feel authentic. And my mom didn't charge us. So we got the best of both worlds there. And did we talk about changing the title, Bad Shabbos?
Well, I was shocked that in northern Westchester, I'd say, what are you doing? Well, I'm doing this really wonderful movie called Bad Shabbos. I mean, Shabbat? What? I go, no, you're kidding, right? Bad Shabbos, good Shabbos, Shabbos. I came back and I would report to you every morning going, oh, there were 11 more people that didn't know. But then when on the checks, it said Friday night dinner. And then I thought, oh shit, he's changed the time. And thank God he didn't. I mean, you couldn't. I mean, were there people that really seriously thought you should change the title?
A few, and we had some votes. I remember we were discussing, it was like, well, there's Shiva Baby. Do more people know about Shiva? And you were like, yeah, maybe more on Shiva. And we thought about Bad Sabbath, but then it sounds like a Black Sabbath documentary. So we kept asking people for better titles, but nothing came. If you have one, it's not too late. We had like Upper West Side Story. Someone thought The Platter could be funny because David Paymer gives the monologue about a body and how you can only move it if it has an infant or a loaf of bread. Are there any learned people in the audience? Can anyone tell me if that's true? Shira, who is in my middle school class, and she knows Gemara probably a little better than I do. Do you remember this or no? She's right. It is true. You can go on ChatGPT. They know Gemara too. It wasn't in the original script. And this is part of making a comedy, like on set and even in the script, you have to be open to everything. So I showed up to shul one day, synagogue, and I ran to a friend, Joey Heller, and he said, send me the script. I love reading these things. So I sent it to him, and he said, it's really funny and great, but there's actually this rule, you can't move a dead body on Shabbos unless you have an infant or a loaf of bread. I said, that's not true. And he said, yeah, it is. I study like every day. And I looked it up. He showed me the page, and it was true. And he said, we have to put that in the movie. And this was just a few weeks before. So we put in this whole monologue, and then we have that laugh of when he puts it on the body. And then on the sidewalk, you just see, and it was actually worked out in the end because we didn't have the budget to show cop cars showing up with an actual body there. So it worked out that we had just had the challah, and we could flash a red-blue light on it. people would figure out what it means. And Lubitsch famously would do 2 + 2 jokes instead of giving the audience 4, and it ended up being an extra laugh. So sometimes obstacles are opportunities. We tell ourselves that as everything's falling apart. And sometimes they're just obstacles and you're screwed. But most of these worked out, I think. Maybe one final question, and then if someone asked me a week ago if I could tell you the joke at the end of the movie, just so you have it, because we didn't include it. So only people who come to screenings will know the joke. Or is there a final question I'm missing? I don't want to cut anyone off. Or are we good? Okay, one last one, and then the joke.
How did you get the cat to do anything that you?
How did we get the cat to do anything? Have you worked with cats before?
I have not.
Me neither. And we hired a cat who they said, use this cat. He was worked with Peter Dinklage. So I said, what do you guys think? It's probably going to be a good cat. They say it's probably going to be a good cat. The cat shows up, and I discovered you can't train a cat. So they kept saying things, and the cat did not listen. The only thing this trained cat would do is if you put treats somewhere, it would go to the treat. So we just kept putting treats in different places and videoing for 7 minutes, hoping it would make a facial reaction. But if anyone tells you they have a trained cat, don't believe them. Was the cat male or I didn't check if it was male or female. They're very cute. Yeah, that went a long way. So the joke, which it's in Judaism, there's this concept of, forget it. But the joke is this rabbi and his student are walking in the old country, and they decide to pitch their tent for the night in some pasture, and then they fall asleep. Then a few hours later, they wake up, and the rabbi nudges the student and says, Avi, look up, what do you see? So Avi looks up, he says, wow, well, I see 1,000,000 stars, Rabbi. He says, yeah, and what can you learn from this? And Avi says, I think we can learn that there are millions of stars in the sky, and even though they seem separate, they're actually part of the same universe under Hashem, the same way each of us feel separate, we're actually all connected. And the rabbi said, wow, that's really nice. And the student looks over at the rabbi and says, well, what does this mean to you? So the rabbi looks up and says, Avi, someone stole our tent. And it's not in the movie, so if someone watches it and says, what the hell was that joke, you guys have to tell them. So thank you so much to John and his family for coming, and friends, and for coming out. And
let's give our guests one last big round of
so much.
applause.